Hey filmmakers, today we're going to take the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K and see if we can fully rig it out into a shoulder rig for some beast mode filming. Let's drop in. To start off this build, I've already done a couple things. I threw it into a small rig cage, and then I have a standard Manfrotto quick release plate on the bottom. And I'm actually using 2 screws to keep it from spinning or rotating. The next thing I've done is added the Samsung T5 SSD 1TB hard drive here, and I'm using the small rig mount to do that. So let's see what's coming down the gear chute now, because that's the next thing we're gonna need. All right, so I'm gonna be using the Rokinon Cine DS 24mm lens. It's the widest lens I have, and even on a crop sensor, it's still about a 38mm equivalent on a full frame sensor. And when you're using a shoulder rig, it's nice to use a wide angle lens because it helps hide a lot of that shake and movement, whereas opposed to using like an 85mm or even more zoomed in, you're gonna see those movements really dramatized. We're grabbing the Tiffin Black Pro Mist 1/4 strength. And the reason I'm gonna be using this filter is because it adds just a little bit of softening to the image. Because when you're using a camera with this much resolution, full 6K, it can often look a little bit too sharp and digital. So the Black Pro Mist helps take off a little bit of that edge and allows those highlights to bloom a little bit and takes the skin tones and makes them look just a little bit softer. We have the base plate that this entire thing is going to build off of. So this is the Camvate quick release base plate riser. And I like this because it allows you to move the 15mm rods up and down to where you need them and just get them just right. And on the bottom of it here, I've already added a Manfrotto quick release plate so that we can put this right onto a tripod. So let's get this slid on here. Looks like we've got the small rig 15mm rods now, and these are the 16-inch versions. So I'm gonna slide these right into place. Next, we have the shoulder pad, and this one is actually from Small Rig. It's pretty much the cheapest one that they sell, and it does the job fine. It's not my favorite because the padding on it isn't like super thick and firm, but it definitely does the job. And I'm actually not gonna tighten it into place yet because this is all just a little bit of a dance to get it right. So I'm gonna actually loosen this base plate here and slide the camera forward so that I can get the shoulder rig on. Now we've got the Tilta V-mount base plate. It allows you to manipulate the position of the V-mount battery so much, which is actually gonna come into play with adding some counterbalance to our shoulder rigs. And what we're gonna do is tighten this at the very end of the rails. Now that that's tight, I'm going to slide the shoulder pad back all the way and then tighten it into place. Now, you may be wondering, why did I slide that out of the way? It's because the tightening knob for this base plate actually rests right up against this, so I wouldn't be able to spin it if this shoulder pad was in the way. It looks like we've got another piece coming in here, and that is going to be a D-tap splitter. So what I've done here is I have a piece of Velcro sticky to the back of this D-tap splitter that has 4 ports on it. And then I put another piece of Velcro on the back of the V-mount plate here so that I can just add 4 more D-tap ports to this whole rig. Next, we have the V-mount battery, and I'm using a 95 watt-hour one. I'm gonna get that clicked in, and then I'm gonna plug it into the side of the actual battery itself here. I'm actually gonna slide the entire camera all the way back until we hit the shoulder rest, and then tighten this into place so that the camera doesn't move anymore. The next thing that it looks like we're gonna need is a monitor mount. Because when you're using a shoulder rig, it's imperative that you can see your monitor so you can actually get your framing and everything in focus. And let's say that I actually have this up on my shoulder. You can see that the camera is pretty much parallel with my head, so I really can't see the monitor unless I'm like leaning back like this, and I'm just going cross-eyed, I can't even see it, so that's a terrible idea. A lot of people mount their monitors with magic arms or other little contraptions like that, but I always find that those ball heads get loose and they end up rotating or spinning, and it just drives me crazy. So let's slide this onto the NATO rail here. Let's get the monitor coming down. And today we're going to be using the Portkeys BM5 monitor. Now there's a couple reasons that I chose to use this monitor with this setup. And one of the main ones is that it has a 2200 nits brightness monitor, meaning that it gets extremely bright, especially out in broad daylight, really sunny days, and I don't even need a sun hood for it because it's just so bright. The next big feature of this is the fact that it can actually control the Blackmagic camera. So I can start and stop recording from it. I can change ISO, shutter speeds, white balance, everything like that, all from this monitor. So let's get this tightened into place here with the 1/4-20 thread that actually comes with the mount. All right, so that's looking pretty good already. And it's actually kind of lined up perfectly already. I can see the monitor directly in front of me. If you want to adjust it, I'll show you guys how you can actually rotate it around. You just loosen these knobs and then you can rotate it, tilt the angle, everything like that, and then quickly tighten it back down. This is so rigid, it's not going anywhere. I can actually lift the entire rig from this. Now, you find me another monitor mount with a ball head mount or magic arm or whatever it is that you can grab your whole rig from and everything stays completely rigid. This is just insane. I love this mount. Now, it looks like we need to get this thing powered up, and we have the Sony NPF battery to a D-tap adapter. So let's get this thing plugged in, because I like to run my entire rig off of the V-mount battery when possible, instead of switching out individual batteries on the monitor and on the camera and everything like that. That's just such a headache. I want everything going back to one giant power supply. And we're gonna do some cable management at the end of this rig build, so don't freak out. I am gonna secure this down nicely later. Let's get the power supply. And I'm just using a standard LEMO pin connector to D-tap. So I'm gonna plug this into the side of the camera, and we still need to get the monitor plugged into the camera. You see we've got the HDMI cable here, and I'm using a full-size HDMI to HDMI cable, and I'm gonna get that plugged in. The next thing we're gonna add to this is a top handle. We're using this one from Small Rig, and it's actually pretty small itself. And I really like that because it's low profile, doesn't stick up too much or stick out too much, but it still allows me to have a nice grip on the entire rig. There we go, super solid, allows me to lift the entire rig, move it around. Because we're using fully manual lenses, I need to be able to pull focus, and I don't want to actually put my hand on the lens because that'll add too much shake and vibration to my footage. And it looks like we're going to be using the Tilta Nucleus Nano. So a lot of people have asked me in previous rig builds, why do you use a wireless follow focus? Well, there's a couple reasons that I do it. The first and main reason is so that I can hand someone else the focus wheel and they can actually pull focus for me remotely on another monitor. But when I don't have someone to pull focus for me, I prefer using the motorized one anyways because it's just so smooth and turns the lens so smoothly, even better than a manual follow focus, which I've used in the past as well. And you can program A and B hard stops really quickly just with a button going boom, boom, A, B, and you can get perfect rack focuses. We're gonna get this motor on, and I'm going to slide it onto the right rail here. We need to get power to the motor, so we're gonna be using a micro USB to D-tap cable. Get that plugged in. I see we need to get the hand wheel on there. So I'm using this Tilta little hand wheel 15mm rod adapter, and I'm gonna slide it onto the left side here and just tighten it into place just a little bit. And then we have the focus wheel. Now that I have the focus wheel on, I'm going to slide it all the way back to right where I want it. The next thing we're adding to the shoulder rig is a matte box. and I'm using the Polar Pro Base Camp. And I really like this one because it's just so light, slim, doesn't add a lot of weight to the entire rig. And then of course it uses the variable ND filter. And on most real proper cinema cameras, they have built-in variable ND. So I wish that they would add that to these smaller DSLR cameras, but they just haven't done it yet. I'm waiting for someone like Blackmagic to innovate and put variable ND filters into these smaller cameras. The way that we're attaching this is with a clamp mount. So we're gonna be using this 77mm clamp, and I'm gonna put it directly on the front here. Let's clamp the matte box to the front here, get it nice and straight, and then just tighten it into place. I know a lot of you guys out there add matte boxes to look just a little bit more professional on set, and so your rig looks cooler, but that's not the reason that I do it. I actually do it for two reasons. One, to get rid of lens flares, and the second, to add filters like the variable ND filter that we have here on the front of the lens, that I can just spin and dial in that perfect exposure. The next thing we really need to add to actually turn this into a shoulder rig is the dual grips. I'm using these dual grips from Camtree, and I really like them because they're actually pretty solid. They have a nice rubber grip on them, and then really solid metal construction that extends down a pretty good amount so that I don't have to lift up my hands too high. It comes down lower so I can have a little bit more of an ergonomic grip on the rig. And they're quick release, so it's easy to take on and off the rig. So let's get this slid onto the front here. So we're not done yet, but things are coming along really nicely, and it's starting to look like a full good shoulder rig. Before we add any more pieces, I do want to do some quick cable management to help tighten things up, make this rig look better, and prevent any snagging. So at this point, you could definitely go out and start shooting with this rig and get some awesome footage, but there are some bonus items that I think you could add to this. One of them is a microphone. And a lot of you guys have asked me in other rig builds, why don't you add a microphone to your camera? Well, there's a couple reasons that I don't. The first one is that usually I'm recording audio separately into like a Zoom H6. So if I have a boom op with me, they can get the best clean audio possible. Or I use a lavalier microphone, and that I would mount onto the camera and then go directly in. There's very rare times that I put a shotgun mic on my camera and then use that audio, because it's just gonna sound like garbage. It's too far away from the source. If you put a microphone on and your character's even 4 feet away, it's gonna sound really echoey and pick up all these other sounds in the room. So it's just really not good for that. Honestly, I just use the internal audio from the camera itself as scratch audio for syncing to my real good audio source. We're gonna add the cold shoe mount on top of the handle, and then slide our Rode shotgun mic on. And the final bonus item that you could add to this rig is a wireless transmitter. We're gonna be using this one from Hollyland, and it is the Cosmo 600. We're gonna add another cold shoe mount to the top of the cage here. And then we're gonna use this little cold shoe mount and screw it onto the bottom of the transmitter. Then let's get some power running into it, and this is using a LEMO pin connector to D-tap. So I've got everything powered up now, and let's see how well the shoulder rig actually functions. So the first thing is its ergonomics. Of course, I can just hold it nicely like this, and it's actually counterweighted pretty nicely with that V-mount battery resting on the back there. And then it's just not too much weight, and I actually kind of put my elbows in against my body, and it's pretty comfortable to hold. Now when I want to pull focus, I keep my grip here, and then I can just look up at my monitor, which is directly in front of my eyes, not off to the side or anything like that. It's right in front of my eyes, and I can see my focus perfectly. So nice and crisp. I just tap record up here in the top right, and it automatically starts rolling. The fact that I can pull it from this top handle and completely just move it around, but nothing is moving or shaking on it, is incredible. That means this is a solid rig. And of course, if you need to slide this onto a tripod, we've got the quick release plate on the bottom so you can quickly slide it onto a tripod, get locked off shots or panning, tilting shots. The purpose of this video today is just to show you guys how to get the shoulder rig all set up for the Pocket 6K or 4K. But I will be shooting a bunch of example footage in the future, and you're not gonna wanna miss it when it comes out. And I have a ton more videos coming out on editing, shooting, everything like that. So be sure to hit subscribe right now so you don't miss anything. And I will see you guys in the next video.